Hello everybody, welcome back to Java Tutorials. We're doing part 2 in which we focus on objects. Now last time, if you weren't with us, we made a class called main, and that just prints out hello world, and penguins are amazing apparently, whenever it's run. So, very simple class. We learned how to print stuff, which is always a good thing, trust me on that. So now we're going to talk about objects. An object is a class that functions as a container, I guess I could say. It represents something, like something physical, for the most part. Like a car. Say you wanted to represent a car in Java. You would make an object called car, you would give it like attributes about numbers of wheels, about what color it is, all of that. In fact, why don't we do that? Actually, no. Let's start with something bigger, because I'm going to work car into this later on. How about vehicle? A vehicle is an object, obviously. It's something that we can touch. It's a noun. It exists. Note that it extends java.lang.object. All classes do in some way or another. Well, with a few exceptions, we might be able to get into that later. And we're not going to give it a main. So it's not going to be executable, and you'll see why later on. So it builds a class. Doesn't generate a method for us because we didn't tell it to. So let's do that ourselves. Class names are always capitalized. Camel case. If you don't know what camel case is, it's when you run your words together like this. That's camel case. You don't have spaces in your names. Capitalized camel case is like this. I'm already breaking my own rules. And lowercase camel case is like this. Package names are lowercase camel case, class names are uppercase camel case, and almost exclusively method names are lowercase camel case. Except for the one we're going to make right now. See, breaking my own rules. So the one method that is always that breaks the mold 99% of the time is the constructor. The constructor is a special method, and you make that by saying public vehicle. That is your constructor. It is a method, and it has the same name, the same capitalization and spelling as your class. Otherwise, this will not work. Now, you made a vehicle. You want to give it some defining properties. What are some things that all vehicles have? Let's see. I don't know. Yeah, let's write this down. What do a car, motor, cycle, I swear I can't spell today, and tricycle have in common? They all have wheels, okay? So let's give ourselves a vehicle called wheels, and we'll make it private. There's three types of variables. There's public, private, and protected. A public variable means that everything can access it, all of your methods, anytime, anywhere. A protected variable or method, this applies to methods too. If it's protected, then it can only be accessed from within your package. We'll get into that later, it'll be important. And then there's private, which means only this class can access it. The typical way of doing things in Java is making all of your variables private and then making special methods to access them. Don't worry, it's not as hard as it sounds. So we're going to make a private number of wheels. Oops, I can't believe it. I'm already screwing things up. Int, it's an integer. Int is one of the specified types in Java. There's int, double, float, string, and a handful of others. Don't worry, I'll explain them as we come across them for the most part. And then there's special ones later on we might be able to get into. Let's see, what else? What other properties do all vehicles have? Well, they all travel, so how about speed? Nope, not. I'm out of my VM. Alright, private double max speed. A double is kind of like an integer, except it has decimal places. And I want to say it can count higher than an integer, but I could be very, very wrong on that, so do not quote me. And let's throw something special in there. Let's say we want to know what color it is. So private color is not one of the core attributes of Java, but there is a class that we can use to handle it. You see the JRE system library? This is full of good stuff that we can use in all of our code. And it'll work on any installation of Java. Color is one of them. So it'll give me a squiggly line. That essentially means something's wrong. In Eclipse, if something is wrong, it will tell you. It will be very quick to tell you, and it will give you a ton of solutions. So if you're ever confused, just hover over it, and usually the answer will be there. In this case, we want to import color. Importing is like saying that it's in the same package as you, that all of the stuff that color has is available for you to use. If you have a variable called color, treat it like you would an int or a double and make everything accessible. No problem. So we have a constructor, but right now it doesn't do anything. It just creates an object with nothing. We want to pass it some variables so we can set all this up. And the way you do that is you say, you give it an int. You can actually call it whatever you want. Double color. Let's say we want to do that, just to prove the point that it doesn't matter what you name your variables. We get to use a very fun, very useful variable called this. The variable this, is a representation of vehicle, as it is right now. Whatever the vehicle is set up, this contains all of its data. And we can reference aspects of that data that are available using dot. See, this is where system.out.println comes in. You'll understand it more as we go along, what that actually means. So this dot number of wheels equals wheels, the variable that we just got. This dot max speed equals speed, and this dot color equals color. Like I said, it doesn't matter what you name the variables, as long as it makes more sense if it's consistent, but as long as you set things all equal, it doesn't matter that much. Consistency is always a good goal, though. Keep that in mind. So we want to be able to access these. They're all private, right? But there is an easy way to do that. Go to Edit, no, Source. Actually, no, I'll do it manually first, and then I'll show you how Eclipse does it. I will put myself through the pain. You need to create a method. It's going to be a public method, and it's going to return an int. See, it's kind of like we set up the variables up there. Get num, get number of wheels. I'm already tripping myself up. Now notice it's lowercase camel case. All of the method names are, except for the constructor, which is pretty much the only exception to that rule. And we're going to say return this dot number of wheels. So we can call that method, and we can get how many wheels this has. And just to prove that this is how it actually works, we're going to test this in main, not the state. So we're going to create a new vehicle to mess around with. And we do that by saying vehicle, I don't know, let's make it a car, equals new vehicle. And it's yelling at me because I need to have the arguments to match, which are integer, double, and color, representing the number of wheels, the maximum speed, and the color respectively, because that's how we set it up, remember? So a car has 4 wheels. Our car has a max speed of 120 miles an hour. So then when we use our magic printing command on car.getNumberOfWheels, we should be able to get 4. Yep, there it is, right in the command console window thing. Yeah, it's called the console. I don't know why I said command. I kind of screwed that one up. So we have a way to access our stuff, but it's kind of tedious to type this out, especially if you have a ton of variables, which a lot of classes will eventually have. Luckily, Eclipse gives us this neat little tool under source called generate getters and setters. You just choose whichever ones you want to write getters and setters for, which you're not always going to want to write a getter or a setter for an object, especially if it's internal, but you'll be able to determine that pretty easily when you write your own code. Just hit OK, and it's all there. All of your code is valid, all of your code is written, it's very shiny. And we can use the same syntax on get max speed and get color. And we run it for 120.0 and java.auth.color with the color value. It's all right there. If you're wondering why it prints it like that, it's because the color class handles how it wants to print things, so it's up to it how it wants to do it. I'm not going to argue with a class that is part of the Java source code. So we went and used system.out.println to display all of the properties of this object. It's very good for debugging, it's very good for seeing what's what when, but it's also kind of tedious, especially if, like I said earlier, you have a ton of properties on an object, which is not uncommon. Luckily, there's a way that we can make this all really easy, and Eclipse has given it to us. Go to source and generate toString. You can do it for all, I'd say select all the fields. You'll know later on if there's a compelling reason you don't want to do that. And we save it. I'm going to explain it, and I'm going to come back and explain it after I show you what it does. So now we can just print our car. And it gives us all of that information right there. Now, what does it do? It overrides a default method. When you override something in Java, you replace what it is supposed to do, or what it used to do, what it usually does, with your own code, which is really convenient, especially if you're dealing with pre-built classes. And toString is a method that all objects have. It is what gets printed when you print that object. And in this case, we're making it print the number of wheels, the maximum speed, and the color. It does it all at the same time. Eclipse generates the code, so you don't have to worry about missing anything out. And it's pretty fast. All right, let me clear things up a little bit in here because the console's getting kind of smudgy. like I said, printing, calling sysout or syso, print line, whatever you want to call it, without any parameters, just prints a line. So we should be able to run our code and it'll, yeah, we have nice spaces, which makes things look a lot better. So congratulations, you have made your first class. Whoa, sorry. You've made your first object. The day is getting to me already. Alright, next up we're going to learn about extending objects, and we're going to finally get to make our car. See you then.